Hello and welcome to the Path of Least Resistance. Today we're going to be going over the new player's guide. And on the screen right now we have a run of Lissandra using Lillia. I'm starting from the Ethereal Remitter where we take mortal marks. I think that'll be about how much time I want this video to be. And we also get Explosive Finale with it, so every time we kill a unit, it'll do 4 damage and the units only have 1 hit point. So we have Stalker's Blade on Lillia. I think the combination of all that is pretty powerful, but that is not really what we're talking about. We're talking about the new player experience. So for those of you that do not know, starting from the May 1st, I decided that I was going to do a new playthrough, start a new account, and see how far I could get in Legends of Runeterra, starting with a new account and doing it free to play. And I wanted to see if I could make it through all of the adventures. The Rogues of Runeterra event I didn't know about, so that was a nice little surprise that added the Grand Heist, which has 11 requirements, and then the Rogues of Runeterra event itself has 32 requirements, so it added an extra 43 adventures to complete, which is about 20% of the total adventures that are in the game right now. There are 208 adventures if you're not counting campaign adventures, but I wanted to see if I could get through all of that, and then it'll also give me an idea of what I would do if I were a new player, since the channel largely revolves around trying to help people do things, and if I don't really understand the new player experience, then it can be a little bit harder to understand like what I would do in certain situations and what kind of difficulties that people will come up against and all of that. So that was the idea behind it. It was just get more in touch with what it feels like to be a new player. Obviously I have certain advantages. I know all of the adventures, I know all of the champions, and just having like that information base makes it a lot easier to get through things. So yeah, that is what the new player guide was, and then I documented everything in a spreadsheet. So if you want to look at exactly what I did, I wrote down every adventure that I did, and then every currency I spent, every currency I acquired, all of that is in that spreadsheet. What day we got relics, what relics I was using on champions at the end of the day, what level they were, all of that stuff is all in that guide. So you can look at that anytime, and hopefully if you're a new player, that'll help you out. And so let's start with legend levels. So one of the first things that you encounter in the game is legend levels, and legend levels lock basically everything. So it unlocks chapter quests, daily and weekly quests, rare and epic drops from the shops, or from adventures as well. It locks relics, it locks shop upgrades. So if you have been playing for a long time, you can buy, let's say, champion items in the shop, you can buy powers in the shop, that's locked. It locks healer upgrades, so initially you can't purchase healing, which heals you to full, and you can't remove cards. So it's just really like stuff that I consider very basic doesn't exist until you get your legend leveled up. It also locks weekly adventures and nightmare adventures along with monthly challenges as well. And so one of my first goals was to unlock nightmare adventures, and apparently you need legend level 15 to do that, which is actually took longer than I thought. So I played a lot in the first 3 days and I wasn't able to make it, and so you end up doing a lot of the the early adventures just for the legend points, because that's the best way to do it. Just spam a bunch of really quick adventures, and then that's a way to unlock your legend levels. And since your starter champions are Jinx and Yasuo, you are able to beat those nightmare adventures as soon as you unlock them. If you have Tempest Blade relic from the Misfortune campaign. And so I felt like it was important to unlock that early, because if you do the 4.5 star Nightmare Weekly, you do get a gold vault, which gives you 20 shards at the minimum, or 20 fragments for a random champion. which is a nice way to get fragments. So yeah, legend levels, just blocking all of your progress and making the game harder. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I'm sure it's fine. It does give the game a sense of progression. Because you unlock, let's say, like a weekly adventure at 5, 10, and 15, and yeah, it slowly like builds you up into how you're dealing with those, so you would gain experience as you're going through those, and you're not being like day one you can walk into a nightmare, which I could do, but like a new player definitely wouldn't be able to do, because you just wouldn't have the experience and understanding of how to take that out. But I think it could be sped up a little bit. I spent a lot of time trying to unlock it, and I was unsuccessful in the first few days. Probably not a big deal, but it is something that I noticed. Another thing that surprised me is how much time you actually spend on like Jinx, Yasuo, and Lux, because they're your starter champions. So you're basically running each of them through literally every single adventure, and so you spend just days working with them, and you don't actually need to switch off champions until you've completed everything with them, and then that gives you also more information on what champions are available to you, because you'll have a better understanding of where you can spend your wild fragments. If you have more champion specific fragments first, you can like make those choices. Like if you're 20 short on getting a 3-star on a champion, you'll know that by going through all those adventures. So I think and the starters are really good. Like Jinx is one of the best. I think Yasuo is the strongest champion in the game, especially at 3 stars. Like as you get into like 6-star, it falls off, but Yasuo is, you know, one of my favorite champions, strong enough to do any content in the game. So including like the 6-star weekly, you can do that at like level 18. All you need is Tempest Blade. So I think it was surprising to me how much time you spent with all those champions, but it's nice that they're all really strong champions. Lux is a little less strong than Yasuo and Jinx, but still capable of doing every adventure. One thing that was a challenge for me was how slow leveling is. So you need to do a Thresh adventure, and then an Aurelian Soul with a Greater Cosmic Blessing to hit level 30, and so I used all my Greater Cosmic Blessings. That you get some for free, and it's nice. So that would be 10 times your normal XP, so you need to do like 10 Aurelian Soul runs to hit level 30. Level 30 is not necessary, you can do a lot at 20 and 25, so it's probably not as bad as I'm making it sound, but it definitely, if you're looking to get levels, as soon as you stop making parallel progress. So it feels fine when you're leveling up if you are also completing adventure requirements at the same time, but as soon as you stop doing that and you have to level up an extra champion, like let's say you've done all your Bilgewater with Misfortune, and now you need a second Bilgewater to do the Tidal Trickster Nightmare adventure, like that level up feels terrible because you're just not making any progress in other zones while you're just spamming like Thresh and Aurelian Soul or whatever you choose to do. Sometimes it's Tidal Trickster that you actually end up doing, so yeah. So I didn't enjoy the leveling process. I think that XP could be sped up. I know that there are gemstone upgrades to do that, but I think even excluding that you, or even including that, you could just have more XP so that it feels like you're just wasting less time, I think. I mean, the game's fun, obviously. I like playing it, but it feels like you're just working with not a full champion when you're missing, especially like the level 20 power to draw a champion is really big, but a lot of the card upgrades that you get along the way are also important. Also, health is really important. So a lot of times you'll die in an early adventure because you have 20 hit points instead of 40 or 35 even, and that just doesn't feel good, especially when you knew if you had like those extra 5 hit points, you would have been fine. So there's that. So yeah, I do not like leveling. I think it's bad. For champions, like I said, I really like that you start with Jinx and Yasuo. They're very strong. I think it's important to unlock Misfortune early because that gives you the Tempest Blade. Lee Sin is surprisingly important because he has Scourge's Stash, and Garen gives you Loose Cannon's Payload, which only matters for Jinx basically, but it matters a lot for Jinx. So, I mean, it's something that you want to do. Garen's also really good, so it doesn't hurt to get him to 3 stars or 2 stars because you only need 2 stars to finish the campaign. But yeah, it doesn't hurt at all. So, that's how I feel about your early champions. I think Nami is the best Bilgewater champion. I think Nidalee is the best Shurima champion, and Vhagar is the best Bandle City champion. There's a lot of good Ionia, although you start with Yasuo, which is plenty. PNZ has some good stuff too, but you start with Jinx, so you don't need to do that. Freljord, I think Volibear is probably the best, but Ashe is also really good. There are probably other choices there too, actually. They're both pretty good. Or they're all pretty good? Not all. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Many champions are very good in the Freljord region. Nope, it's just those two. It's just Ashe and Volibear. Trandomir's kind of bad, Ornn's kind of bad. And then Gnar. Gnar's okay. I mean, he gets a stun, that's fine. Let's see what else. Yeah, Nox is spoiled for choice in my opinion. Runeterra, Fiddlesticks is good, Evelynn is good, Jhin is incredible, Elder Dragon's very good. Shadow Isles, you have Elise, which I never got any fragments for. Gwen, Kindred, who I also didn't get any fragments for. And then Viego. Viego's insane. I didn't realize it, but I guess I probably knew it when he first came out and I played him, but I haven't really played him much since. Viego's just like nuts. He's cracked. And then for Targon, I think your best choice is Morgana, and it's not even close. Unless, of course, you have Aurelion Soul unlocked, in which case he's also very good. So that is how I feel about champions. Also, it's nice that you do get Viego, Swain, Fiddlesticks, and Yasuo shards from their adventures. So the Unforgiven for Yasuo, Ancient Fear for Fiddlesticks. I don't know what Swain's is called. Noxian Grand General? Yeah. And then for Viego, it's the Ruined King. So those adventures, 3 of them are Nightmare Adventures, Yasuo's is not. Those adventures will give you 40 fragments for those champions. And like obviously Yasuo will probably be 3-starred before you get to that point. But if he wasn't, then you could. And then Viego, Swain, and Fiddlesticks are all just incredible champions, so it's nice that they give those to you. In terms of resources, so you do get a lot of, and we'll do an entire video on this, but Nova Crystals you get a bunch of, but you don't actually get enough fragments to use any of those. In the early days, it takes a while to acquire those, which I think is fine. I think at the end of this, I had almost 1 complete Nova Crystal for each region. And so that's kind of cool. So you do get a lot of Nova Shards for free just by going through the adventures. And you get a bunch of Star Crystals as well. I have, I think, a minimum of 45 for each champion. And then, of course, gemstones are not real. I barely have any, not enough to buy a single upgrade for anything. Gemstones are, I don't understand them at all. In terms of just fragments, generally speaking, a lot of my champions ended up between like the 45 and 100, minus the champions that I, got 0 on. But so most of them could be reasonably 2-starred at this point. although I didn't. That's not a thing I did. But yeah, you could reasonably 2-star most of your champions by the end of doing it all, assuming that you got lucky, because obviously there's a chance that you could just get way too many shards in one champion and then not a lot of shards in another champion. So for example, for Pyke I got 125. Pyke is not something that I ever considered using. He's fine, but it's not really my style of gameplay. Or like Jhin, even considering all the event fragments, I kept getting more. Same with Elder Dragon, and like I just don't need that many shards. But I ended up with an absolute ton, while Elise and Kindred I got basically 0 on. Annie, Bard, I think Bard I literally had 0 on. Yeah, so the spread of your champion fragments is something that's just going to get worse over time as we get more champions. So I hope they add in more things like those Nightmare Adventures that give champion-specific fragments, because at least gives you a source of them. And so that is how I feel about that, fragments. Stardust is a currency. When it first came out, it was kind of difficult to get a bunch of, and you use it to buy golden reliquaries once a month. You need 3,000. I ended up with, I think, 21,000, and I bought a golden reliquary, and I bought every fragment, or not fragment, every rare relic that showed up in the Emporium. I think that's a good usage of it, because you can get really unlucky with relics, and the Emporium will always give you a relic that you don't have the maximum number of. So you can get duplicates in the Emporium, but eventually if you buy all the duplicates, or if you acquire them through like the weekly nightmares and whatever, or not weekly nightmares, just the weekly adventures. The weekly adventures give you a bronze reliquary and a silver reliquary. So just by doing that, you'll pick some up, but you do get dupes, and you get dupes early and often. So I ended up getting duplicates, I think, as soon as like the 7th day. So I was still missing a lot of relics. I'm still missing a lot of relics. And that's just a thing that happens. So if you buy them in the Emporium, eventually you'll get them all. And then when that happens, you don't have to worry about relics anymore. And I feel like you have more than sufficient Stardust, especially since if you do the monthly challenges, you get more Stardust than I think it costs to buy your golden reliquary every month. And so you can stay ahead. I think my main account has like over 100,000 Stardust, and it's just getting bigger, and I'm buying the Spirit Forge every day. I also ended up buying the Spirit Forge every day on the new account, but just because I had so much currency, and so yeah, that was fine. My video is running out. I should have started it from an earlier point. Terrible. I'm so bad at this. So now you're gonna look at nothing. Anyway, Mortal Marks beat I Am Inevitable here, and that was pretty nice. So, yeah, relics are a place where you can just get unlucky, and that feels really bad, especially when you're getting duplicates when you don't have the things that you already need. So I wish there was more duplicate protection for relics, and there just is not. So things we're missing: Warmog's Armor, Troll King's Crusher, like these don't really matter. Wriggle's Lantern's pretty bad, I would say. I didn't get Turret Plating, which, you know, makes Swain a little bit harder. Didn't get Curator's Gatebreaker, which makes a lot of champions worse, particularly Jhin. If you can't trigger that Plunger, he's pretty bad. I don't think I've ever used the Collector. Bounty Hunter's Renown, though, is something that I do like. Star Gems are great. A Miss Orb kind of only matters if you have Starforged Gauntlets, which is a pay epic. So if you don't have that, it doesn't matter. Guardian's Trinket, I don't think matters. Golden Spatula, people have used it, but doesn't really matter. And of course, Kill Force only comes from the Emporium, so you would only get that if you exhausted. Well, I think you can get it randomly, but you can for sure get it if you exhaust everything else. So I think it's worth spending that Stardust to buy relics. But yeah, sometimes you get unlucky. Like someone in my comments was saying that they still don't have Chemtech Duplicator. They've been playing for a while. I don't think I could have gotten through all the adventures without Chemtech Duplicator. It's such an integral part of so many champions. And yeah, so not having it is just really bad. So for challenges that I have faced, this is, I'm just playing right now, this is Garen's 2-star campaign adventure, and the first thing is Chemtech Pickpocket, whose power is stolen scrap. Round start, the foe creates a fleeting scrap scuttlers in hand and adds a random item to it. One of the items that scrap scuttlers can get is Resplendent Armor. What Resplendent Armor does is it gives +7/+7? And they cost 3 more, but as you can see, these scrap scuttlers play for free. And they also have Scrap Dash Assembly, which makes 2 scrap scuttlers. So I lost this adventure several times to them just getting Resplendent Armor. A couple of times, they got it more than once in the adventure. So I was facing like 4 15/15s on round 3. And of course it's not going to happen this time, which is very, very disappointing for me. Felt like I was being gaslit. It didn't happen for so long. But yeah, Resplendent Plate Armor can hit these scrap scuttlers, makes them enormous, makes them impossible to deal with. Happened to me 4 times in a row. It was the first item they got. It was awful. But apparently I couldn't make it happen again, so I just got unlucky. Other challenges, obviously the hardest thing is the Ancient Fear adventure in the Nightmares category. So over here, the 6.5 adventure, Elise can kill you just kind of at will. If you get unlucky or she gets lucky, you just lose the game. And then after that you still have to fight Fiddlesticks, which can, you know, destroy your entire deck in 3 rounds. So, and even if he doesn't do that, you can get just a massive amount of units on the board, and it's just really hard to deal with. But you only have to beat it 5 times, so there's that. And then Lissandra has some problems. A lot of Lissandra runs took me like 2 or 3 runs to complete, because you're usually fishing for specific powers or specific ethereal remitter powers. Or if Lissandra gets I Am Inevitable, sometimes that can just end a run depending on what champion you're playing. Sometimes you can deal with it, like in the Lillia adventure that we just saw, by just being stronger than I Am Inevitable. But if it's like I Am Inevitable into Ice Shards, which can happen as soon as round 2, there can be like 4 thralls on the board, and then they're all +6/+6 from the Ice Shards, and yeah, you just basically can't win at that point. Lissandra can also pull, if she uses Buried in Ice, she grants like an epic item to units, so you can give thralls, they can't take damage or be destroyed, it can give them double attack, it can give them elusive, like I've been hit with all sorts of things. So a lot of runs just end on Lissandra. And then of course we have Aurelion Sol, who isn't quite as bad, but if you get some early power overwhelming runs and your champion's not very leveled up yet, that can kill you. And of course at the end, Aurelion Sol just has like a bunch of RNG variants. If he pulls Viego as his champion, you will lose your champion usually, and that usually loses the game for you, or a number of other things can happen. And then on top of that, the first nodes in a lot of adventures are really hard. So, in like the Collector of Souls, you have the Spiderling adventure, which just does a lot of damage to you. And then in like the Nightmare adventures, like Swain's first adventure is also Spiderlings. And it's very hard to deal with. Ancient Fear one isn't that bad. I think the Build Runner one is also pretty taxing though. You just, like, a lot of swarm is the thing that happens. And that can be hard to deal with at low levels especially. But sometimes even if you're just playing a slower champion, it's really hard to deal with. And then finally, for powers, what I've noticed is that Fortifications is incredible. That gives your Nexus tough. It helps prevent against the auto dying from the swarm, and then also reduces the power of Deadly by quite a bit, I would say. Disarmed, for the same reason, gives the opponent's units -1, -0. That's actually a lot better than I thought, especially in the early adventures where things might not have, more than 3 power to start with. Reducing that from 3 to 2 is a lot. And then some of the newer powers are really broken, like Lethality, is making the Nexus take extra 2 damage, or extra 1 damage. Moving from 1 to 2 is a really big deal. Same with Perfection, which grows damage to 4. Moving from 1 to 4 is insane for a lot of champions, like Jinx, Kai'Sa. If you ever pull Spellburn, you just win the game with the Perfection, or Explosive Entrance, which is when you play an ally, you do 1 damage to the enemy Nexus, that becomes 4. Swain becomes just incredible. Every unit that dies does 4 damage to the enemy Nexus. So that won a lot of runs for me and made it a lot easier. So yeah, a lot of the Nightmares and Lissandra runs came down to just getting good powers and then winning that way. So that is all. I think I covered the whole thing. I still want to talk about some other things more in depth, like why I picked certain champions, how I spent currency, and I think there's something else I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember it right now. Oh, Nightmare Adventures, how to path through them, so that we can actually get to a guide portion of the new player's guide, whereas before I made mostly just a timeline and how I would spend my currency, which is still a guide, but a little bit less of a guide than I would like. So that is all for me for now. Hope this was interesting to listen to. If you like what I'm doing, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.